Hey, Hyp3rsh0ck here, and welcome back to another episode of Hyp3rsh0ck Reads. Today we're going to be starting another one of my original stories, but this time it's a longer one. Today we're going to be reading Chapter 1, Midnight and Midday. Now, just so you know, the character Sean in this story is a different Sean. Well, same Sean really, but different Sean. The Flesh Golem was independent of this, it's not canon. The sound of Sean's footsteps were nearly silent in the pitch-dark woods just a few miles south of his home. He could barely make out the path in the ultra-low level of light that he was currently in. Some of the leaves crunched under his feet every once in a while. Whoops, I'm really bad today, sorry. In the months that had passed since he met Kadir, things had changed drastically. The weather now seemed to show less sun. It was like there was an aura of fear in the air. It was as if he could be attacked at any moment. This is when Sean heard many footsteps. He looked to his left. He could make out the boots of soldiers heading east from where he currently was. Sean kept quiet, in case the squadron of soldiers were enemies. Move slowly. Now, I'm going to mispronounce every single spell in here, but that's okay because they're in a different language, so I'll just say how it looks. Move slowly, he whispered. Dim light came from the soles of his feet. He could feel the difference as well. He couldn't hear his own steps, only those of the soldiers. He was careful not to step into the warrior's line of sight. He thought of the others back at his home. Sui was nearly done recovering, though it had been 8 months. Nonox had been training pretty hard when Sean left. He continued creeping through the woods. Sean cut a new path straight into the heart of the forest. As he walked, the forest seemed to get even darker than it was before, to the point where he had to rely on his sense of touch to tell where he was going. Eventually, he couldn't hear the soldiers anymore, so he unmuted his footsteps. He inhaled air, converting it into magical energy. He exhaled a small amount of flame, not wanting to start a massive fire. A stick caught, and he picked it up, using it as a torch. It seemed only a whisper of wind snuffed out the torch. The grass and leaves around frosted over in an instant, a flicker of light and 2 glowing eyes. Light blue in color appeared out of the darkness. Then he saw the rest of the body, a human-sized, bird-like creature, had human arms tipped with talons, clawed feet, and feathers on the elbows. The creature's face was human in nature except for a beak-like mouth. The creature also had smoky gray wings. It approached Sean slowly, being cautious and curious. Sean looked at it before turning away and bounding through the woods. He was aware that he was making more sound now, possibly alerting the group of warriors. Out of nowhere, an unexpected bump in the ground threw Sean off balance, toppling him over. His ankle twisted as he fell, shooting a pain through his right leg. As he tried to stand back up, it seemed like the world melted. He tumbled off a ledge. Landing a second later, he stood up, and it was still dark. So he had no idea where he was going, where he was going. He chose a direction that felt the safest and took off at full speed. The darkness warped around in his eyes as his feet touched down to the soft soil under him. He dodged trees as they came up at fast speeds. It felt like he wasn't touching the ground as he ran farther south, or at least he thought he was running south. He heard a few birds rush out of their hiding places in the trees and flap away. He then saw a swift movement up ahead. He stopped to see what it was. A fox, gray and with icy eyes, stared up at him. Its dark fur seemed thicker than that of a normal fox. He jumped over the good-looking animal and continued to run. He detected a tree not too far ahead of him. He attempted to dodge, but ran face first into one of the branches, knocking him over again. He hissed in pain. A piece of the branch had made contact with his eye. The entire area around his eye stung horribly. He was cut in that area as well. used a simple light creating spell and shone it on his face and sent the reflection at the ground. It was already red and starting to swell up a small bit. He tried to open his eye, but when it did, it felt like fire. Instead, he quickly took a fibrous plant from nearby and strung it into a shabby eye patch. He put it over his eye and continued at a more cautious pace than he was before. As he moved, his ankle gave out on him a few times, causing him to drop to his knees. He made a turn and fell off another ledge, sending him 16 feet downward. He landed at an awkward angle on his shoulders. He stayed lying down in a muddy substance, staring into the sky. He wasn't going to continue running for a while, but he was itching to go deeper into the woods. He stood up and half limped forward in a different direction. The night dragged on at a painfully slow pace. His feet ached after about another hour of walking. The sun started to rise just as he saw some smoke. Close to where he was, he followed the smoke. A village with wooden buildings appeared in just 2 minutes or so. His ankle gave out again as he entered the village, and he passed out on the ground. He woke up in a bed, which was placed in a room that had a large bookshelf to the left of him. It seemed to be overwhelmingly dust-ridden. He felt something cold over his injured eye. He brought his hand up to his face and felt 2 pieces of wet cloth over this eye. He then took them off. His eye still stung a little, but the swelling had gone down. Walking was fine. He didn't seriously injure his ankle, so when he left the room, he was in mild discomfort, but nothing bad. He left this room and went down the stairs and saw a shopkeeper working. He looked strong, with nut-brown skin and defined muscles. He was chipping away at a block of wood. He was in the general shape of a weapon or armor rack. He finished walking down the stairs. The man's hair was tied in braids behind his head. He turned around and said to Sean, "Woke up now?" he asked in a booming yet friendly and warm voice. Yeah. Yeah. You were out for a good 12 hours, he said while... Wait. You were out for a good 12 hours, he said while laughing. Sean nodded and came up to him. Thank you, sir, Sean said with a nod of respect. Don't thank me, he said. Thank Akari, the alchemist. Akari? Sean asked. Yeah, she fixed you right up with some potions, though you healed abnormally fast. I did? Sean asked. Yeah, and I never got to know your name, he prompted. Sean, he replied to the friendly man. Nice to meet you, Sean. I'm Karf. Karf, Sean said. The name was different from what he'd heard in the past. Well, I'd best be going, Sean said as he turned to walk out the door. Wait! There's one thing I want to talk to you about. Sean turned back around. Yeah? Follow me. Karf led Sean down from where... Karf led Sean from where the two were standing to a spot near the stairs. He put his darkish hand on the wall and pressed down. The wall opened up and led down to a secret room. Karf walked down first, followed by Sean. As soon as he stepped through the passageway, the entrance shut with a surprisingly quiet sound. Karf made a left turn at the end of the stairs, leading to a door, which he opened. The room had a base of stone, and the walls were a mix between wood and this stone. So, what did you want to talk to me about? Sean asked. Karf sighed. All the signs are pointing to the fact that you aren't a regular human. Sean kept listening. You healed abnormally fast. Your eyes are brighter than a normal human's eyes. Is that all? You seem to radiate some odd power, and that's why... Karf took a breath in and leaned closer to Sean. I know you're the Dragon Knight, he whispered. How could you tell? Sean asked. The reason I gave you, and also, He didn't finish the sentence. Karf stepped back from Sean and opened his hands. For my Transiba, Karf whispered. There was what seemed to be a burst of mist. It was a thick mist, more like a fog. A whirling force pushed this fog out of the way, and when all the fog was cleared, Karf stood there. It seemed like he now had dragon claws for hands and the scales of bronze color running up his wrists to his forearms. But they were choppy, and they weren't in an unbroken set. Some of the scales were cut off from the rest of them by large portions of skin. And some of these bronze-colored scales appeared throughout his body, some even on his legs and face. Hello again, Sean. Meet me, the half-dragon warrior. Sean started. You? Yeah, yes. He morphed back into the version of him without scales. Only Akari knows about my truth, and the others wouldn't accept it. Are you sure? Sadly, yes. The townspeople here want nothing to do with dragons, but if they know about you, it would be an exception. Why would I be an exception? Sean asked. Because you're known as a hero, a blessed warrior who fights evil. But then why would they not accept it from you? Because my father bestowed this curse upon me by having a child with a Dragolite. Oh. I didn't like my father for that, but at least he didn't look much like me. Sean nodded. Completely flipping tones, Karf said cheerfully, Alright, kid, let's go get you a new weapon. New weapon? Well, you don't have to get one. I just thought you might want one. Yours is looking a bit rough. Sean looked down at his sword. It had small areas of weakness and even some cracks. Sure, I'll look through your selection, Sean said with an upward nod. Karf and Sean walked back up the stairs and opened up the secret door again. The door closed as soon as Sean walked through, after Karf. Karf opened a large chest. It had quite a few weapons. One of the first ones that Karf pulled out of the wooden box immediately stood out to Sean. It was a sword, a bit smaller than his current one, but the blade was thinner and curved to a wicked point at the end. Sean picked it up right away. I had a feeling you'd choose that one, Karf laughed and said. Karf smacked his hands together and pointed them at Sean's current sword. Negrosit sagt. Negrosit sagt. Negrosit sagt. As soon as Karf repeated that incantation, the power from Sean's current sword came out flying in a twisting stream of golden light. He directed the flow of the energy into the curved blade that Sean had in his hand. It took a few seconds for this flow of power to be completely transferred from one blade to the other. There! Now your new sword has the power of your old one, Sean thanked Karf. Karf handed Sean a paper that had the writing on it. Puka. Karavis. Nak. Say these words if you need me, Karf said as Sean walked out with the new weapon in the paper. Okay. Sean exited the building and began to walk out of the town. He noticed that he still had the cloth pieces in his side pocket. He made sure that he moved fast enough to leave without being seen. He darted out of the town entrance and began moving south. After just a few minutes, he saw a large, fortified stone building on the horizon. And that will do it for today's episode of Hyp3rsh0ck Reads. Let me know if you enjoyed that, and I will see you next time. Goodbye.